Hi everyone. Okay, so I finally have another webcam program on my computer. So I'm going to try to catch up with a lot of videos that I've been neglecting to do. So you might notice that there's like 5 or 6 videos being uploaded tonight. So this video is in response to a comment that I had posted on one of my other videos about introducing two birds together. Now the first thing I want to say to this particular person is that although I did not comment underneath your comment, you never want to put two birds together in the same carrier, especially when you're going to pick them up because you don't know the history of that bird specifically and you don't really want to cause any extra stress when you're going to pick up a bird. Now, if that's not the case and I just misread your comment, please continue to listen. If I don't answer your question, just message me again and I'll try to clarify myself as best I can. So, actually, I get this question quite a bit. People who ask me, I have bird A and I'm planning on getting bird B. Can I put bird A and bird B in the same cage? Now, a lot of people will tell you that you can put two birds of the same species in the same cage, and most of the time that is true. Now, remember, just because you have a finch doesn't mean that all finches can go together. It's kind of the same thing with a lot of species of birds. Not all Amazons like each other. Not all parrots like each other. Not all macaws. Not all cockatoos. Finches. You name it. Just because they're of the same general, it's not the species, but the same genus, doesn't mean that they're going to get along with each other or that they're even compatible at all. Now, um, one of the biggest mistakes I see people do when they try to introduce a bird to another bird is that they try to force them to get to know each other, and that's really not a good idea. Um, if you have two birds that are roughly the same size, then what I suggest is putting your birds in the bird room or the bird area, whatever it happens to be, and sit in the room and just watch what's going on. Sorry, I'm just looking over at Goonie's cage. I put a paper bag in there yesterday, and he's actually inside it playing with a ball. Gotta love birds. So once you have both the birds set up, um, leave the doors open and don't force anybody to come out. Don't force them to get up to each other. Put some really good treats out, 2 or 3, not close together, but close enough that they can see each other, and just give it time. Do not force your birds to like each other or to get close to each other because that will cause a fight. I have 6 birds at my house right now, and I've had of those 6, I've also had 2 European ring-collared doves. I had my Bijou, my lovebird. He passed away recently. And I also had another cockatiel named Cobalt. Now, of all of these birds that I've had, I have never had a problem. The only issue that I've completely avoided is that my umbrella cockatoo is obviously too big to play with the little birds. He can seriously injure them and very, very possibly kill them simply by touching them with his beak. Like, he's huge in comparison. So, of all of the small birds that I've ever had, I've never had a problem. Now, the reason being is that I'm not trying to cram 5 birds, which is the case with my little birds, into the same room just as it is. I've got lots of toys. I've got lots of different dishes, lots of bowls. My opinion with water dishes and food dishes in bird cages is the same as my opinion on litter boxes with cats. You should have one food and water dish per bird plus one if you have a multiple bird cage. So Kia, who is my Linny, lives in a cage by himself. So he has one food dish and one water dish that's changed every day. In my cockatiel cage, I have 4 birds. It's a fairly large cage, and my birds get out every day. Actually, they're out right now. Which means that I have 5 water dishes and 5 food dishes. Yes, that is a grand total of 10 dishes I wash in that cage every single day. And the reason why I do that is so that there's not fighting over any specific bowl. If one bird goes to one bowl and kicks the other one out, the birds know that they don't have to fight over the dish. There's 4 other ones they can pick from. The same goes with toys. You want to make sure that you have an appropriate number of toys. Every cage should have at least 3 toys. My rule of thumb is for every extra bird, you should add 2. That way there's plenty of toys for everybody to play with. Now, if this is the first time you're introducing two birds to your bird room, what I suggest you do is you leave their wings intact. Now, this is, if you're going to clip anybody's wings, you need to really focus or pay attention to what your birds are doing in particular. If both of the birds have their wings intact, leave them there. Let the birds meet each other and see how it goes. If you find that bird A, who has been at your house for X amount of months, years, insert digit, is picking on the new bird, then what you're going to want to do is clip your old bird's wings for the time being. That will give the new bird a chance to fly away without getting hurt by the bird that's already been there, until he learns what can and cannot be done. There is learning that happens as far as how things work in any bird situation. If it's the opposite, then clip the new bird's wings so that the old bird does not get picked on. Now, I actually have a friend upstairs. She has a cockatiel as well. He's an only cockatiel, and he comes down fairly often to play with my birds because she only has one. Now, Mick is a bit of a bully in my cage because he has only bird syndrome and is used to eating from whatever dish, drinking from whatever dish, playing with whatever toy, sitting on any perch, and he doesn't share very well. Now, that being said, when he does visit, if he ends up staying overnight, he sits in his own cage just so that we don't have any fighting. Now, on the topic of having several birds in one cage of different species. Now, this is a very risky thing, and I cannot stress enough how much you cannot force two birds of different species, two birds in general, to live together in the same cage. This can be a formula for utter disaster. I cannot stress how many times people have put umbrella cockatoos in with Amazons or Amazons into African greys, and what happens is they will attack each other. I've seen pictures of cockatoos without beaks. I've seen pictures of Amazons without toes because the birds just go nuts. So, if you are interested in having your birds in the same cage, there are several incredibly huge suggestions I'm going to make for you. The first is that you get a cage 2 to 3 times larger than if the bird was by itself. That means that if your cage is 4 feet wide, then you're looking at least 8 feet for this cage. The reason being is that you don't want to force a bird to live in a cage in close proximity, even if they're friends. Could you imagine living with your best friend next to each other, shoulder to shoulder in the same room all the time? Yeah, right. Just because they're friends doesn't mean they're going to put up with each other at all hours of the day. I have 2 dogs, and I know dogs aren't like birds, but I have the very rare few dogs that live in the same house that don't fight over anything. But the catch is that the dogs get out every day. They have their own toys. They have their own beds. They don't even sleep in the same room if they don't want to. And that's why they get along so well, is because they don't have to be together all the time, and the same goes for your bird. Now, if any of you guys have noticed in this big long spiel, if you've heard me say it before, my Rosella lives in the same cage as my cockatiels. And you're probably wondering why I'm spilling all my guts saying why you shouldn't do it when I do it myself. And here is the reason. I let her choose which cage she wanted to live in. When I first got Scarlet, she lived in a very, very small cage, one that was probably built for a finch, maybe. Would even be small for a finch. And she had no toys, she had one perch in the cage, and she was scared of everything. When I first started letting her out of the cage, she was in an 18 by 18 square. I also, at the time, had the new cage that she lives in now. It's a king's cage, and it's fairly large. It's actually labeled for Amazons, but I would never put an Amazon in there. Maybe conure or Quaker or Senegal sized. So, this cage has a fold down top, so there's like a ledge that sits, it kind of folds down from the cage. And what I would do is I'd leave that open, and when Scarlet first started flying around my room and socializing with the other birds, I found it very hard to get her back into her cage, until one night I noticed that my mom had come upstairs and turned the night light on for them, and then turned off the main light, and she was sitting in the cage when I got home with the rest of the cockatiels, and they weren't fighting, they weren't bickering, they were just sleeping. So what I did was I put the blanket over the top of the cage, but left the door open just in case she decided to go back to her cage. I did this for a solid month, where I let her choose which cage she wanted to stay in. And after a solid month of consistently picking that cage, I let her move in. This is the kind of dedication you're going to have to give to your birds if you want them to live in the same cage. You can't just throw the two of them together. So, as far as socializing them goes, here's my suggestion. Pick a day where you're home all day, where you can dedicate yourself to that first interaction. Open the cages and just let them be. Sit in a room close by. If you have a baby monitor, put it in there just so you can hear what's going on, just to make sure they don't try to kill each other or what have you. And what they'll do is they'll learn to watch each other from a distance. Birds are very social animals, and it's not unheard of for birds of completely different species to be friends with each other, but you can't force them into it. That's my biggest thing that I'm going to stress to you. Provide lots of toys, lots of play area. Don't just have one little cage and like a little play gym on the top. We're talking like, double or triple the amount of play space that you would normally have. And that will allow your birds to interact with each other at a safe distance without you having to worry about the birds hurting themselves. So, if that does not answer anybody's question about what I would personally recommend about socializing two birds that I've never met before, please send me a message and I'll try to clarify myself. Good luck, and I will see you very shortly. Well, you'll see me.